Tonight, I had the privilege of sitting down with an EU legend. This is someone that's been, well, not so much recently, they're more background these days, but beyond 2 years ago, they were heavily involved in building the EU community how we know it today. It would not be the same without them. Their life at the time, so this is like beyond 5 years ago, their life in real life was something that they wanted to escape from. There was just a lot of things going on. So they found escapism in the metaverse, specifically Echo Arena. They put so much of themselves into the game and started building a community. They didn't know what Discord was before. They learned how to use it. They learned how to manage the servers, the communities, and the community that we enjoy now, particularly on the EU side. If it wasn't for them, it just wouldn't exist. They put a lot of themselves into building that. And through the course of that involvement within the community, they also met someone they now are married to. Just nuts. That this is the level of involvement and the level of themselves that they put into the community allowed them to be vulnerable and meet someone in that kind of circumstance. So they've since moved on. They're working for a company called Vertex Stadium, a startup that are building a new viewing experience of esports, of competition. And the reason they're getting paid to do that is because they're using the skills that they developed while building this community. The ability to build a server, build a community, and just manage the chaos and contain it, make it move forward and continue to grow. They're now doing that in a business setting related to the same industry, applying those skills that they developed and sharpened and curated there. They're now doing it for a living, getting paid. It's incredible. Let's introduce this next guest. This is Nada. Let's get into it. Nada.
Yes.
How are you?
Very good.
Am I saying it right? Is it Nada or is it Nada or?
There's a lot of versions. I can even send you videos of people singing my name in the spawn area. So, most people just say Nada, and there's nothing special about it. It was just my initials with my name at that time, and I was very uncreative, and later on regretted that, but I just kept it. So yes, Nada.
And you played this game a long time, and I know that because just then I was setting the settings for the arena, and you were like, "Hey, do you remember when that wasn't there?" And I'm like, "No, it's always been there." So when did you
Yeah.
first install this game? When did you first start playing?
Well, I always have to say my historical remembering abilities are definitely not as good as Sendo's, but I think I started somewhere in winter 2018 then, I guess. Yeah, the Christmas 2017, 2018, that's that year basically. That's when I started. So a bit after the game came out. And I was actually kind of interesting because at that time we still played with Rift and PC, right? So everything was a bit more complicated. And my partner said, that game looks so fancy, that surely won't run on our crappy PC. And I waited for weeks until I finally tried it. And then I tried, and it ran absolutely amazing. And since then I didn't really start any other games anymore at that time.
So were you always a gamer?
I was always a gamer, definitely. At some point, I sold my gaming PC because I thought, oh my god, I'm wasting my life so much. I should sell it. And so I bought myself a really tiny 10-inch notebook so that it was just not possible to game on it.
Yeah.
I made some games work on it, but yeah, that was my I should not do that. And then VR came, and I was like, maybe, right? My partner at that time was also like, yeah, it's cool, it's VR, it's fancy, let's try that new technology, amazing. And that's how I started again.
Okay. So if you take me back, where did you grow up? You're German, is that right?
I'm German, yes.
Okay. What was your upbringing like? Were you around games at the time, or?
I do remember when I was quite young and my dad got Amiga 500.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
way back. Yes, I played games like Shufflepuck Cafe and PP Hammer and like Olympic Winter Games, and like really with putting in a diskette, and sometimes it didn't work. Like you call it floppy disks, as Germans say diskette. I will have a lot of weird words. Let me know if you don't recognize one. And yeah, so I really know how these old things still work.
And did you? So you grew up. You were playing a few games. Did you go into study anything related? 'Cause I'm asking because I know that you work in games at the moment. Like, how did you end up in like this
No,
industry?
not at all. I was quite like I didn't know what to do with my life, so I did just something. And at that time, I was a medical training as
Oh
massage
wow!
therapist, which
All
I
right.
kind of hated. I hated talking to people all the time, touching people even worse. So I have no clue why I did that. But I did, right? And like after a year, I was like, my gosh, I'm massaging all these people, and 90% of the issues could be fixed if they would just do some training and fix their muscles. So I was like, yeah, this is kind of annoying. Just go train. So I checked. I was training in a fitness studio at that time that was very health and rehabilitation oriented. And I just went to like they had a sign there, oh, like you can do a dual study for health management. And I was just like, I'm interested in that. Just like, oh, just come into the office. And we had a talk about it. And she was like, you should finish your first education, your training, massage training there. I was like, fine. So I kind of did both at the same time and then studied basically health management there.
Did you do any sports growing up? Were you quite sporty?
I don't know, let's say I tried, but my body was like, nah, you're not a sporty person. That's actually like something what I liked about VR also. I always had knee pain quite a bit. Since I was 12, so I just more or less grew up with that knee pain. And in VR, I just didn't feel it. Like Sendo always complains that I'm not moving, I'm just like a stiff statue, but that's a consequence of that, that I just never dared to move that much. Like running and these things hurt me. But yeah, at that time, VR was just like a place where I could forget the pain and the issues that I had. But yeah, I did the typical stuff for that girls. Like I went horse riding, of course, at some point. But I also did Krav Maga, tried different martial arts and these
Oh,
things. But yeah, it always was like I did it for a while, then too many issues arose and I had to pause again. So I like sports, but I'm not born for it.
so if you take me back to, so did you get into VR before you got into Echo? Was there like a time
That
before
was a
that
few
or no?
weeks. I
Oh,
did like
really?
what was the stuff at that time? You had like Robo Recall that was with the headset at the time. So I
Yeah.
played that a bit, of course, and you test Beat Saber, and then Echo was already the next, I think.
So what was your first, like, when did you first discover VR? Was there a time like way, way earlier, or is this actually around
No, that
2017, 2018?
that was that time, yeah.
Okay. So why did you go back on yourself from downgrading to a little notebook so you definitely can't play any games apart from some flash games? Why did you like what made you go back the other way and be like, oh no,
I
all in?
always was keen about new technologies and stuff, and kept an eye on things. And my partner at that time was the same, so it was just like, oh, VR is they have something, and then we jumped at it rather quickly. It's just
Because
keen about
it's a
that.
little bit of an investment though, because you have to invest in the headset, the
Yeah,
hardware. What's that like,
yeah.
400
That's why
euros?
we had a VR gaming ready PC, but it was not something super fancy. Like just the money wasn't there, so we made it work, but it wasn't an amazing setup.
Okay, so what I want to ask is why, but I need to give context to the questions so that you can answer it in a fair way. But like, no, I'll just ask it. Why? Why VR? Why VR? Why make that investment and go down that rabbit hole?
Question is why not? Like it's something so fascinating to dive into another world and experience something that you cannot have in your real environment. Like just the opportunity, the thought of it. I found that really interesting. I do actually remember that we, of course, as probably many at that time, bought one of the cardboard headsets
Yep.
with our phones. Like a guy had a phone that worked with that, and I put it on, and it was some dinosaur simulation. And just looking up
Yep,
and looking at
I
that
remember.
thing, I was like, fuck yes, that's it. I wanna experience more of that. And yeah, that's why it probably took a few months before we actually finally had it then after all of that. But yeah.
And then, so can you tell me about Echo when you first started playing Echo? Why did you keep playing it? What was it like back then? Because you describe it looking very different, like not even having that computer that I just used to set up the game.
Yeah, you see my outfit. I tried to go back to the original outfit I had at that time. And at the time you could put your head differently than the patterns everywhere else. I couldn't do that right
Yeah,
now. I was like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to run around with that. And how was that? Well, I came in, I struggled to stand and realized I don't have the VR legs for that yet. So I actually sat down the first time I played it, which was also awkward. But I had a similar experience to Sendo that I took the headset off afterwards and I started pushing myself off from door frames and just be like, would be nice to be able to do that in real life too. Or when falling asleep in the bed, I hit my head because while falling asleep, I wanted to catch a disc. So it was
Okay.
just these things that got stuck with me that I was the next day like, wow, this was just so surprising, so intense. The freedom of movement that you have, like even for someone, especially for someone with knee issues, you just like you move fast around and it's effortless and no issues. That was just really really nice, and I wanted more of that, so I came back.
Was there anything particular about like the space theme of it that like inspired you? Or no, it's just the escapism, being able
No,
to float around.
yeah, it was just really the freedom that you get into a space and you can move around freely, and it just felt really good. I like that. And sure, the robots, there's one thing, if you look at the fingertips, the the lines of the fingertips, that totally flashed me, like when you have the PC version and you have this level of details where I was just like, what is this? And then all the little mechanics that you could see. I found that fascinating. The love for detail in this game. That
Well,
was
this game,
absolutely
this would have
amazing.
been one of the flagship games for when the touch controllers came out. So back then, it was a big deal to have your hands. Before that, you just had an Xbox controller. I don't.
Yeah.
When you bought the Rift, did it come with the Xbox controller, or did you get
Yeah,
the
just
touch as well?
also these things, that everything adapts. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
So the detail on the hands is on purpose because at the time it was a big deal to go whoa and look at your hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's deliberate to make that incredibly detailed. And I reckon it just goes underappreciated now because it is standard. Like yeah, of course, the headset
Yeah, but also
controllers.
like if you're on Quest, it's like, okay, cool, done, next. But it doesn't count. It just can't compare anymore to the experience on PC. And I appreciate Quest for that ease of use and everything, but yeah, just seeing those level of details and that's kind of a really nice thing about the PC VR.
So how do you feel about standalone becoming the main now, being the standard, where the PC VR was the standard, and then standalone was like a nice addition, but it wasn't the real deal. If you wanted the real deal, you needed a big cable and into your PC. Do
Oh,
you
it
do
was that was
like
I remember the time when that just came out and
yeah?
everybody was like, "Oh, I'm never gonna switch to that. It will be so inferior to PC VR. I'm not gonna use that for competitions. That won't work." And well, I was in that scene already with organizing stuff, and I was like, "Finally, yes, this will solve all our issues." And it kind of did. Like, it helped a lot. Like, yes, people struggled to adapt to it. They didn't like it, but I'm a person. I turn in real life. I don't use the stick turning. So you can
Right.
imagine how my cables looked really quickly. I had a pulley system. So for me, it was a savior of money, nerves, and just having that freedom to not run into cables constantly. So I loved it. And I think for the whole, environment of just VR growing and everything, it was definitely the right choice.
So how many CV1 cables did you get through?
Actually, not that many because I had a very nice pulley system
Oh,
that
okay.
I like really to the ceiling and around and everywhere. Like I put a lot of efforts in things that I do, so I was only 4 or 5, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. If you're spinning around all the time, there's got to be times when you're doing multiple rotations in one
Yeah.
direction and
Yeah,
turning
I
your
never
rock.
understood those people who could have the cable on the floor. That suicidal creeped me out. I don't know how that
So
works.
I used to, yeah, I used to play on CP1 and I did. I would just like have it hanging along the floor and I just wouldn't turn too much. I'd pretty much keep my feet exactly where they were. I would like turn 90 degrees and then I would just use joystick because I had
Takes me
to.
5 seconds and I'm twisted into the cable.
Okay, so you very quickly you said that you already when standalone was coming out with the Quest launch, you were already involved behind the scenes. So just as you were discovering VR, you got the headset, you were, falling asleep and then like moving your hands, trying to move things like that. Were you already working in a similar role, or are you talking about like volunteer work
No,
for the
I
leagues?
started like most of us as just a player. I was in
Yeah.
the I just joined a match and another girl came to me and she was like, hey, we always have these competitions and sometimes we need someone who helps out and jumps in if a player doesn't show up. Would you be interested in doing that? And I said something that I probably heard 1,000 times afterwards. I said, I'm not sure if I'm good enough for that. And she was like, oh, no, it's fine. You just join and you learn that. And that was the first time for me joining a Discord server. So I really I stopped gaming I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And then suddenly, oh, these days people use Discord. Okay, so I'll sign up to Discord. And yeah, she was basically the person recruiting a lot of people for teams on the EU side. So the first competitions with ESL were already ongoing at that time. And I don't know. I actually didn't really play as a substitute at that time. I was just on that Discord server, learned the ropes, played with other people, made some friends, and yeah, that kind of massively changed my life.
Who was that person? Is it someone that's still around now?
I know she's not playing anymore. Her name was just on Discord CSIE, and she's yeah, from Norway, and her partner was also playing at that time. And yeah, she sort of at some point pulled a bit back out of the community, and I took over recruiting new people for you at that time.
So that was the extent of what you were doing. You weren't organizing community events or anything. You were
Now, at that
just
time,
recruiting teams.
yeah, it was really the competitions. We had I don't know, between 4 and 8 teams maybe signing up from the EU side regularly.
Right.
So it was about how do we get more people in to play, and that turned into quite the side job basically because I ended up having Excel spreadsheets with player names, their
Yeah.
age, who they like to play with, who they did not want to play with, their experience, which position they prefer to play. And then out of that, I probably wrote 30 to 50 people each weekend and was like, how do you want to play? And just put people together. That was really everything to just encourage people to just give it a try, to not be scared, because pretty much everybody told me, oh, I'm not good enough for this. I don't think I should do this. So it was really hand holding and pulling people in to make this whole thing grow and survive.
This was ESL, or was this later,
That was
the community
ESL, yeah.
leagues? ESL. So you're just trying to get teams. You're just trying to get more than 3 and 4 teams to apply
Yeah,
by getting the players. And I mean, that
that's
must have
how
been
it
pretty
started.
difficult because there must have been a lot of dabblers. People come in, play
That
the game
was
a little bit.
extremely difficult.
Yeah.
It's running after people, asking them to play, encouraging them, going into arenas, explaining things to them. We had little training camps at that time,
Nice.
and it was really it was just really hand holding constantly for every
Yeah.
single person that you got in, and that was difficult because you had a team, someone left the team, big drama, people want to quit, and whatever, you had to handle all of that human drama constantly to just keep those few people together. And yeah, that's how it started. But at that time, I still also played myself, a lot with just like with these little substitute teams where I was like, okay, I'll help you make the team, I'll invite everyone, afterwards we delete it again, to just like reduce the barriers, because everybody was like, oh, ESL website's complicated, I don't want to make this team, I can't do this, I can't do that, and people are late and whatever. So I really just helped everywhere to keep things going.
Why did you do that? Why didn't you just play and then that was it?
Because I needed to escape my own life.
You said that very sincerely.
At that time, I found a community. I found people that, well, I wouldn't say at that time respected me. How that in this in gaming communities, it takes a while before you are accepted into it. But I was just really unhappy in my life. I didn't like my job. I barely had money. We really struggled financially. The relationship was really bad. So it was just a struggle to survive and move forward. There was no joy, nothing that it was just really bad at that time. So putting on a headset, being somewhere else, escaping that was my thing. And everything that related to that, being on Discord, making friends, being in a different life, that was the thing.
So you wanted to use the analogy or the metaphor of water in your garden. You wanted to nurture this
Yeah, I
second
guess
life.
that's what it came down to. I mean, at that time, I didn't think much about it. It was just something that, it got me out of it. And I have to say, I don't know, I'm a bit like similar experiences to Palidor, that I was just like socially very insecure, and I struggled a lot with mobbing and all of these things while I was younger. So just starting fresh in an environment where no one knows me, where my real name is not known, gave me the chance to make new experiences and grow out of that and grow my confidence. And I think helping others and getting this recognition, the gratitude for them, probably helped that a lot.
Nice. Who's sender target?
Sendo. We were in the lobby, in the old lobby when it was still smaller, and I just went to him. I was like, dude, how can you be constantly on in Discord? I always see you writing. Are you not working? How can you have so much time? And he was like, no, I'm just like, I'm working at a PC and I always have Discord on the side open. And we just started writing. And we wrote every day and never stopped. And yeah, I guess that led to the situation that he just knew a lot about me and my struggles. And then, yeah, since he came to Germany a few times to test for his job, do some stuff, and we met there together with Affenterror, all three of us, and we just met regularly. And over time, we realized we just, how do I say that? We're just good company. You know, we can laugh together, life is uncomplicated, there is no drama, no stress, and we just like each other how we are. We don't have to be a different person. And that was the first time for me to just have that joy again and realize, maybe I should change something about my life. I mean, the thought I had always, right? But changing something when you're unhappy is really, really hard. Most people just get stuck there. And yeah, he opened the door at some point. He just said, you know, if you want out of your life, I have a spare room upstairs. You can just come there, live there for a while, if as friend or for more. That was it. That was the sentence. And half a year later, my brain finally accepted that the reality of living in a northern country, like, ooh, snow, cold, ugh, uh, with a stranger, might actually be better than my current situation. And that's how things happened.
So it's becoming a lot more common to meet people online and have these long distance relationships. Like, how was that? How was that explaining it to like close family, or was that not really an issue? Was it more like it's just your decision, you're moving away?
No, I mean, I was always the weird gamer, crazy person with weird things, so I guess that was not an issue really. No, that was not a problem. It's like, oh look, I fell in love with a robot. It's not something. Yeah, we always had like at that time we always talked about like, oh, our real friends, and these other people,
Yeah,
you know,
the
and it's actually
separation.
stupid because we're real people too, right? I mean, we know that we're real people, but we treat each other as like virtual friends, online friends, I don't know what. And then there's these real life friends, and it's just, I don't know, by now I don't make that differentiation anymore. It became just more normal.
Yeah, it's when you're explaining it to other people, right? That's when it's a thing. That's when there is a difference.
Yeah.
Whilst when you're in your bubble and you're just living your life, like yeah, if you're seeing these people every day, like there's teams that play every day. Every day they're hanging out. When they're not in the game, they're just on VC watching movies or just hanging out doing whatever.
Yeah.
But they're seeing each other every day, but not in the way that we know it, which is like seeing each other's faces. Oh, I guess they are if they're doing like video calls and stuff. But yeah, there's that separation. There's
I have to say, for me, it was kind of amazing actually, because the people that I got to know in VR, they knew me as the person that I wanted to be, not as that shy person that learned all
yeah,
of their life to adapt to society and in the end just got unhappy. So I could just be myself, and the friendships I made, they are still there today. And that helped me when I actually moved from Germany to Finland, because I just took all my friends with me, well, most of them. So when Corona came and everybody was just locked up and got depressed and whatever, for me, pretty much nothing changed. I just put my headset on and I went to play Echo, I went to play mini golf and Onward and all of these things, and I just was with my friends. And that was fine.
yeah. It's real, isn't it? And you're really not the only one. The amount of people I've met that are saying the similar things. So I interviewed someone last week. They're 16 years old. They spent the last 2 years in VR, like a lot, spending like a good 4 hours a day in VR, hanging out with these people and being in these communities. And it really is a part of their life, especially at that age. Those critical teenage years they've
Oh,
spent
yeah.
in the metaverse. It's
Bad
nuts.
news. That's also so weird, you know, like if you think back how long I'm in this, I've seen people grow up.
Yeah.
And on the Duckman Land, for example, I talked with the boss,
Yep.
and when he started playing, he was 12, and he wasn't allowed in the ESL competitions, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I gave an opportunity to like play as a substitute, but like always, psh, you know, we don't tell
Yeah.
anyone your age, and just because he was one of the people who was like, he was decent. He did a thing. He could behave. He didn't any crazy stuff for his age. Like he was really, really
Yeah.
mature, cute guy. And so I let him play sometimes. And that worked. But yeah, he was 12 at that time. So just sitting at Dogman Land with him there and be like, yeah, you know, remember these times? That's kind of funny because, yeah, I saw quite a few guys change a lot in how they behaved, going from that rebellious 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old to someone who's actually a good teammate and can do decent things and knows how it works. It's really cool.
Nice. So I know that you work for Vertex Stadium at the moment.
Yeah.
You're involved with the project. Are you project management? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm operations manager, so
Operations manager.
I keep an eye on the chaos basically.
How did this come about? Were you doing similar roles before, or was there just a gap? Had you left your job before, and you were just looking for opportunities, and you met the right people?
Well, you know, there's like between me starting VR gaming and ending up at Vertex, there's a lot of history in between.
Okay, sure. So let's
And
let's go back to the middle then. What?
the, it starts and ends with Jersey, VR Jersey,
Yes.
and
Okay.
what ended up in Vertex is something we already talked about. I think 2019.
Okay.
So it's there's a lot, and
By the way, how nuts is it that 2019 is like 4 years ago?
right.
How nuts is that?
It's creepy, and it happens so much in that time for me. It feels like it's a separate lifetime. It's a completely different chapter in my life. So it's crazy, but it's really cool. Like it was a amazing time for me with, yeah, I would say I just completely changed, and that's amazing. But yeah, the thing is, when I played, because you said earlier, like, oh yeah, there's players who spend like 4 hours a day and do that every day and all of these times. And my issue was I would have loved to spend like 8 hours in VR and just play and do of that. But my
Yeah.
partner at the time was like, what, do you want to spend more than 4 hours per week in a headset? That's crazy. We have to earn money. We have to fix our lives. We have to do this and that. And that was actually the reason why I stopped being a player at some point and had to become more the organizer. And yeah, when I was still playing a team, that was actually the time when we had 3 players in the arena. There were no automatic presets for any matches. Like you had to do everything manually, and things were very complicated at that time. But yeah, we also figured out boosting. Remember, that was also not a thing at that time. So yeah, it was just very different, and yeah, just because of that relationship conflict, I was like really stressed, and I could never play in peace, and never could actually focus on getting better. And at some point, I was actually on a team with Tutorial Bot at that time, and Ravel and Tutorial left because he got a good offer from the second best team at that time. So me and Ravel were like, yeah, do we continue? Do we not? And yeah, ESL was active at that time already. And I mean, pretty much everyone knows that people were unhappy with ESL. They were like, oh, big organization, they can't adapt to the wishes of the players, so many issues. And I don't know, I just started chatting with one of the moderator or like admins at that time. And he always was like, oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? I don't understand what they do here and there. And it just turned into a thing of him sort of recruiting me while I didn't want to be recruited
This
because I wanted
is
to
VR
be a
Jersey,
player
or is it
still.
is someone else?
No, that at that time that was Apollo. That was the time of Apollo and Gravity still working at ESL.
Okay.
And yeah, they just ESL struggled because VR
So
is something
who are
new.
these people? Sorry to interrupt you. Who are these people? Were they
That was people
from
from
ESL?
ESL. Yeah.
These weren't, VR gamers. These aren't Echo players.
No, no one in ESL had any clue about VR at that time,
Okay. So
which
was it just like a corporate contract above their heads? Hey,
yeah,
Meta are throwing money at us. Let's get involved with this.
pretty much, yes. Oculus
Okay.
paid them to organize seasons and everything, yes. So they were just doing that. But there was also the issue, or that was part of the issue why everything was a bit complicated, because if the players complained about something and it was made aware to them, and then they had to basically pull out to the next higher people, and they had to ask Oculus, can we change this? Or can we not? And this long way of people and decision making was the reason why people got unhappy, because there was just no way to make quick adaptations if something didn't work.
One other thing as well I just thought of is that Rad weren't acquired until late 2019. Is that right?
Wasn't that even later?
Is it even later than that?
I
So
think, yeah,
Rad
that
must
came
have
right.
been, they must have had more like authority over themselves at the time as well, right? They were more of a gatekeeper to decisions and could do
Yeah.
what they want.
I think Rad was quite flexible and always tried to help the players. But I mean, development is also something that takes time. But yeah, when ESL competitions were, and we said like, oh, we always need this preset for playing, that is when that console got developed and presets were made, or we didn't have a pause function during the games. If anything happened and a player crashed, then you had to look at the watch, and you had to quickly make notes about that in chat because that could result in a fight. And then basically you left the arena, you made a new arena, everybody came in, and then you had to like let the watch run and then score a goal within 12 seconds before the actual play time, because that was the time that you needed to set everything. Like it was really complicated to do these
Yeah,
things.
it sounds it.
So already Dawn was really supportive in making all of these things happen and implementing them. But yeah, there were other struggles. Like ESL, for example, is always like, oh, you have to write a ticket. If you have a problem, make a ticket. That's why that's still a joke these days. People are annoyed about, I always can make a ticket. But how do you make a ticket if you have a VR headset on? People hated that. Like, how do I quickly make a ticket with this thing? So, yeah,
Rip.
exactly. So,
Hilarious.
so yeah, I was like, at some point, I just started to get into voice channels later as admin, and just said, if you have an issue, just quickly hop in voice with Discord with me, and I help you. And that was a lot easier for people to just quickly ask a question, hop out, and keep playing. But yeah, it was things like that where ESL was just like, we don't know how these things work. We don't know how to fix them. We didn't encounter these issues. Like, how do you enter the results? Everybody was asking for an app for ESL. That was all another thing. So playing in VR, switching to PC, and doing all the other stuff, that was part of the conflicts that we had with the issues. And yeah, this ESL admin was just always like, can you help me with this and that? And slowly showed me things. And that ended in me at some point just playing and between the matches, making sure that our results are in and starting the next round when he had to like go for a toilet. And you know how that is with guys when they go to the toilet, they come back an hour later. So I was just keeping everything rolling at that time. And no one knew that because you're not supposed to be a player when you're an admin for ESL, of course.
Right.
But I mean, there was no one else taking care of VR, so I did these things. And that was kind of funny then, just be in a match and it's like, oh, you have to wait for a moment. And then I did all of this and then we kept playing. So that was quite funny. And yeah, then when the team fell apart, basically I had to make the decision. I was like, okay, finding another team again while barely having time to play. I guess I'll just become a ESL admin now and committed to that basically.
And what does that look like? Is that 100% voluntary?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Like for most, yes. We later, especially, it was quite weird because I didn't have the experience with ESL and their website and their structures and everything, but I still basically had to order around some more admins there and tell them, hey, you have to do this and that because that result needs to be fixed. And like I had the knowledge about the game and how things
Yeah.
work, but they had the actual ESL knowledge. So
Yeah.
it was a bit weird. So I ranked up quite fast in that system, and then I actually got a bit of money for the season. So it was not much, but
Did they
there was
offer
something.
anything to bring you on board full time?
No,
No.
no, that was kind of weird. They hired someone as community manager at some point. Like Skits was actually also involved in that, but they never asked me for anything of that. That is really more like, oh, you're an admin, you just do your admin thing. Like ESL, getting a job in ESL is not that easy. Because I would assume there's like a shit ton of people probably applying for that. So they just rather work with volunteers logically because it has to work somehow. So yeah, that was just like a little side income here and there. But I mean, as players, we got quite a bit of money at that time, right? Because we had
Oh,
like
of
weekly
course you
Sunday
did.
cups and yeah,
So
I
what was that
remember.
like? Like, was it substantial enough to keep people very interested, or was it just like a little bit of expenses?
Surely not substantial, but I don't know what the highest price was for a Sunday per player. Maybe like 60, 70 euros or so. So you could get a few hundred per month if you played each cup and won. I think my highest per month was 160, and I was not an amazing player. So there was actually something to gain on a regular basis. And
That's
yeah,
interesting. How the size of the community back then, and they were
we were
getting like,
spoiled.
yeah. But
We
then
were
how
really
hard
spoiled.
players train now, yet they're like the rewards are so minimal in comparison.
Yeah, but that also partially explains the issues with teams we had when basically the switch to VRML happened and ESL broke together. Like people kept playing, but they were of course frustrated and disappointed, and like, oh, there's suddenly no 20K prize money for the finals anymore. That was a big change, right? So it was a bit harder to continue, and I think for many years we just hoped that there would be another season, but there wasn't. And yeah, that is also some part where VR Jersey become like we always worked a bit with him, like he was a caster at that time, or
Okay.
casted at least sometimes, together with Molarin at that time. Yes, and yeah, well, we talked a lot, and we always he was one of the people I went to like when I wanted feedback. I was like, hey, I have this idea for this rule change, or I see this situation happening, or maybe could play another format or something. So we always had close contact. And at some point, he was like, you know what? Um, I heard that they don't want to continue with Echo Arena. They just want to focus on Echo Combat.
Interesting. I did not know
Yes.
that.
No one
Interesting.
knows that. I think that's like 4 or 5 people knew that at that time.
Ooh.
That was like, we made a Discord group. I actually still have it, and we were like having basically a meltdown. So we took two more people in we trusted. That was Tutorial and Viatrix, and we started talking about that. Like, if these rumors are true, if they're serious, they want to focus on the money game, kind of makes sense. You know, they have Echo Combat, it's cool, it's new. Let's push that. That means they're gonna kill Echo Arena. And yeah, we kind of freaked out about it. So we made plans. How what
Hang
can we
on,
do?
does it kill the team, the game? Or does it just mean that combat gets the love? Like,
No,
back then,
it
hypothetically.
was really just about the competitive part at that time. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, we got these rumors sort of confirmed through thousand corners and contacts. So we were like, okay, we have to convince ESL that it makes sense to focus on Egg Arena because it was the more popular game at that time. And it's a sports game
Really?
that has a lot of benefits if you think about leagues or organizers that have to focus on games that don't involve any violence and weapons and shooting games, therefore, right? If you think
Yeah.
about high school leagues,
Yeah.
it just makes sense that you have this game because it's very unique and it could actually attract people and also get sponsors interested because it's a sports game. So
Yeah.
we we were like kind of yeah, ESL was actually quite okay with that. They were like, you know, you're right, it's a bigger game, it's really cool, but yeah, we had to convince a bit more people. So at that time, no one knew that we were just fighting as a little group trying to keep the game alive. And that is something that kind of it's nice to finally be able to talk about it because it's so far in the past and no one cares about how that all came to pass anymore. But yeah, that no one knew. So there would have actually been a time where the plan was there is no Arena competition anymore. And yeah, I started doing Sunday Cups on my own to collect data. I tested formats with people, I gathered opinions, and all of this data combined with also things that Jersey did to convince them resulted in us keeping Echo Arena at that time. And yeah, that is basically one of the things that connects me to Jersey, to just like, we always worked together to grow VR, to grow Echo Arena, to make cool experiences. And yeah,
Do
that's
you
how it
feel
started.
that if ESL did one more season with Arena or Combat, do you think things would be different, or would it just be the same where
Well,
we are now?
ESL wanted to make that season. Interestingly, the format that you see in VRML now, with
Yeah.
or like that later came with like having a separate master tier and ladders, like
Yeah.
the basic idea of that and the first attempts to make that happen. That is something that was written down in the rule set for what was it, VRL season 4 would that have been, I think. Yeah, history knowledge horrible if I'm wrong. Then I'm probably wrong. But yeah, the last season that should have happened was fully designed. Like the rule book was done. There was a plan how to do it. We had some graphics prepared. We were just waiting for Oculus to say go. And we waited and waited and waited.
When you say go, you mean what? Just
I
sign off
mean,
on
they
the
were
next season?
sponsoring that, right? So
Okay.
without them saying, okay, ESL do it, ESL didn't do it because, yeah, that's not how the system works. So everybody was ready, but Oculus pulled out. And part of that reason,
Right.
of
So
course,
what
was that VRML existed.
was Oculus picking up the tab for all of it? Was Oculus paying ESL for everything they were doing there?
Well, as far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Because that's how usually it works. Like usually a game developer or some other type of sponsors goes to ESL and says, we want competitions for this game. Like Ubisoft with Space Junkies, these things.
Okay. Well, I mean, that does make sense why ESL would just like, well, if the money's not there, like, why would they hang around? Unless they had
Yeah, I mean, someone
sponsorship
needs
money
to
from
pay the
elsewhere.
people to do it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And if there's no investor, sponsor,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that was basically how that. I mean, it made sense at that time. Like when we were at OC6 and VRML was like, "Hey, we're interested in Echo Arena. Can we do that?" So it was Dakeen, me, and Wit was there, and we basically sat all at a table together with Ready at Dawn people. And we were like, "Does it make
Oh,
sense? VRML Echo," and that's how it started. So Me and Wit wrote the first rulebook for Echo Arena and ESL, so we also started that one up. And I think just having this as being like a signal to ESL, to Oculus, like, hey, people are unhappy, they want to do their own stuff. Oculus observing that and saying, like, oh, VRML is doing fine. Why should we pay money for something that others do for free?
Yeah.
I think that was a big factor of that too. So, yeah, that was parts where both companies did well. Like VML definitely built up an amazing caster team and got all the media side way better handled because they just knew how it worked.
Yeah.
There's like stories from the first games. It was quite normal, for example, to show the first person and just follow the player doing things. In Echo Combat, that was a lot worse than in Echo Arena, where people really on stream were like, please stop that. We're getting sick here. I can't watch this. Like, it looked horrible, you know, we didn't have that knowledge
Interesting.
yet. There was no auto follow cam and all of these things. So there was like, even on the caster side, there was a lot to learn on how do I handle these cameras? How do I make the game look good? So what we have today of just more this sports style of back and forth from the side view with rarely showing first person, that wasn't the thing. So when ESL tried to do these things without any knowledge, they made people nauseous with it because they just didn't know what looks good and what didn't look good. So VRML did a lot of work, and the communities did a lot of work to just figure these things out. And yeah, then there was actually the idea that VRML would do the casts and handle all of these parts, and ESL would just run the competition because they're a well-known organization. It's just for players, it's amazing to say, "Oh, I'm a ESL player," right? It's cool, and they had the website and all these structures already ready. So it should have come to that cooperation. There were talks for it, but yeah, we waited, and Oculus ESL pulled out at some points, and they're like, "Yeah, there's not gonna be a season anymore," and that's how we ended up with VRML.
Were you like on the team for VRML at any point, or were you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
me, Wit, and Tutorial Bot, we were the first moderators. We built it up there.
Okay.
I know no one knows me anymore these days, but I did a lot at that time.
Well, I know of you. So before doing my research and my homework, I, I see your name around. You seem to have like a legacy around you of someone that's been in the background, building things in the past, but have taken more of a backseat role by the time that I got involved, which was around 2020, like summer 2020.
Yeah,
So
it's a bit like I did my duty. At some point, I just ran out of steam because I was just so involved. Like, keep in mind that was the community that gave me an out of my really bad life at that time. So seeing that struggle, having that fear of, oh, Echo Arena might not continue, like fighting to keep it alive, fighting to keep it grow, and all of that. That was my life. That was something that motivated me, that gave me some purpose, something to do. So yeah, I invested a lot of energy, really energy. Like that, I was especially with VRML. Like when we got more tickets, we had hundreds of tickets, sometimes thousands of tickets per week. That was just not doable for humans anymore at some point. So we had to get more people in. The rules had to be rewritten all the time. So that was all of our work, and I was there from the beginning. And
how long did you
yeah,
stay for? And did you crash? Did you just like stop? Like, I can't do this.
yeah, I stayed for
Take
a
a break.
long time. But what made me leave at some point was just that I realized how stressful it is for me. That I just kind of grew out of it. Like I needed that at some point to build my confidence, to find my place in the community, in life, to see what I can do, what I can't do. And at some point, I was just like, okay, this is taking so much time, so much energy. It's causing me so much stress and worries. It's just not worth it anymore at that time. And funnily enough, everything that VRL always wanted to be, like the community league, someone that reacts fast to things and is better than ESL at making changes and listening to the community, at some point it just caught up with them that if you are growing and you have to take care of more people, then you also need some governors and you need some people taking care of the chat, you need some people taking care of moderation, you need some that are familiar with rules. And the more things you need and the more things you develop, the longer things take to communicate. So in the end, we reached a place where there was no quick decision making anymore. There were no quick changes. So you had exactly what you had with ESL too. And suddenly it was easy to understand why it's not that easy to run such a league at a certain size anymore. At least not if you just work with volunteers and everybody just has to invest their free time and their motivation. It's a big task, and it just got too complicated at some point, and I was like, nah, I just can't keep up anymore with the changes and the tickets and everything. That's it just got too much.
Too complicated in what way?
Well, you know the VRML rule set now.
Uh,
I think it's incredibly complicated. I think I lost my motivation when the penalty points came.
yeah.
And then there were tickets to answer, and you had to figure out how many penalty points all of these things were. And at that time, things constantly changed. And reading up on that and answering a few hundred tickets after figuring out what the penalty points are, like, it's not so easy. It's not like someone opens a ticket and you're like, ah, yeah, okay. I look up in the spreadsheet, 5 points for this, done. No, you sit there and you sometimes argue for days with your fellow moderators trying to figure out what a fair solution is. Like, it's easy to complain from the outside and say, like, oh, what an unfair decision, this is bad, this is this. But there's actually people sitting trying to make a fair decision. Sometimes they might fail. Sometimes they just might fail on purpose. So I don't know how things are, but it's like there was never like a quick and easy decision. There was a lot of discussing and a lot of trying to figure things out. And if that group didn't figure it out, well, then I had to go up to some higher people, more experienced governors, whatever. Then they were discussing. And then it went back. So it takes so long time and it takes a lot of effort in reading up and discussion. I think I spent from these 5 years, since 2018, 19, around that, I probably spent like 50% of my days discussing. Because we discussed through nights. I sometimes went to bed at 3 or 4 a.m. just because the discussion was it felt so important. Of course it wasn't, but I put in that energy. I was like, this is my life now. I have to fix these things. I have to find solutions for the problems in Echo. I have to make everything right and perfect and listen to the community. And that was also a big conflict for me always, because I represented the community, in my opinion. So for me, it was important that whatever I say or do is always in the best interest for the community. And I really argued harshly for that. And I was often alone with that, especially in VRML, because a lot of people were from NA, and NA and EU had always a bit of different opinions on certain things. So I basically was that lone fighter from EU, just saying, like, I want this, I want this, I want that because of these reasons. And even if the reasons were good, it rarely happened, just because there was a lot of NA mods that basically outvoted me there.
Did it help, like, your life outside of Echo, because it was moving on? You're meeting someone new. You physically moved country as well. Did it help having more stability outside of Echo to deal with the chaos in Echo?
But that, interestingly enough, I think I left VRML when I was here already, and I think being here was actually what gave me the calmness, the braveness to just say, like, my life is so good now, I don't need to do this fight anymore.
Yeah.
I just wanted more of, like, I need to find something for me that is fun again. I want to enjoy life. And I just grew out of that. So being here and, like, having a really amazing life now definitely helped me to just let go of some things that I needed to grow up with that, and that was amazing. So
That makes sense. It sounds like you were kind of running on autopilot. There was a time when it was giving you satisfaction on getting involved and managing things and organizing things. but then it went too far and you were
It
just
helped
doubling
me and
down.
it taught me a lot, yes. No, it was helpful for me like to build confidence in all of these things and learn about myself a lot, that I can do more things than I thought at that time, which was also kind of interesting because in the beginnings in the chats, I got a lot of mean comments, of course, right?
Yeah.
I always struggled to speak up because I was pretty sure that Boop would rip me apart with his opinions and crush me, or that Affentaro would just make jokes about me. Like, I have short hair, right? So they had that picture at some point in, and so they always called me little boy. And that is still a thing. But yeah, I just thought at some point, like, if I quit the situation, if I run away just because they do that, what that wouldn't fit, right? Like, I cannot let others decide these things for me. So these little things kind of help me to just be more confident and say, no, okay, I'm a little boy, but you know what? If you have an issue with the rule sets, or if you have any questions, you still have to come to me because there is no one else. That helped me. That grew my ego. Yeah. No,
Nice.
it's kind of weird and funny to look back at that, but yeah, it helped me. And it also helped me to get this job now because Jersey, of course, saw me organize things, saw me handle problems, and all of that. He knew me very well by then. And at some point, I was just, when I do this stadium thing, that Vertex thing, I
Yeah.
will need someone who handles the community, who helps me there with things. And then I would like to have you. And yeah, I moved countries, and at that time he was ready enough to at least hire me on what was that, like 10 hours per week or so, not a lot. But yeah, me moving, being in a different country, it was something, right? So that's how we started. And when it grew, there was more stuff for me to do, and I did a bit of everything. And I think it was the fifth or so. We were 5 people, I think, at that time. And we hired more and more people, and with everybody who came, I could tell all the stories, how things started. And yeah, that was really just cool to grow up into that and then figure out, hey, I can actually do more than a bit of community management. I'm good at seeing issues, at keeping an overview of things, at developing processes, checklists, and stuff like that. Like, I had management things to do in the job before where I worked. But yeah, suddenly I had the freedom to just say, like, this is an issue, let's fix it, and to work on that. And that's kind of how I grew into that position and could learn a lot about myself.
Do you still feel a need to like nurture and look after and organize a community, or are you quite good at stepping back now?
Oh no, I'm really happy if others handle tickets and complaints. No, it's like it's always funny to look at that. Like, if you have Discord communities, they all sort of work the same ways, and you see patterns repeat over time.
Yeah.
And when you do that the first time, it's exciting and you want to do good, you want to fix things, you want to do everything perfect. And at some point, you just realize it's a mess. It's always going to be a mess, and no matter what you do, it will stay a mess. And you have to deal with the chaos constantly. That's what you do. And I'm okay to let others do that now and just watch it and enjoy it with some popcorn.
Nice. So
But I
is
do still
the
enjoy being part of the community. So just be around, even if it's just that person that no one really knows anymore who it is.
so you never used Discord before at all, and now you're like running them.
No, I grew up with like TeamSpeak and what was all that stuff, the MSN chats, and I don't know, like the
MSN.
really old stuff.
Yeah, I remember MSN. That's crazy. It's just not a thing anymore. That was like the go-to. That and MySpace,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually
Yeah, it
Facebook.
was easily possible to waste a lot of time in these places, like on Discord too.
Yeah, that's exactly what Whoa! So Discord is the modern day MSN,
I mean,
right?
it's definitely better. I love Discord. It's amazing.
So, so your role at the moment as operations manager, is that the title?
Hmm.
Is that heavily involved with Discord, or is it just more than that? it's more managing the business as an organization?
No, like when I started at Vertex, I laid the foundation for a lot of things. Like I helped design the first website. I made the Discord server with Jersey. Then I figured out what could be a process when we work with partners, like all of these basics. And then every time when we hired someone, I gave that part away, and they made it into something proper with their expertise. So same with Discord, like I don't know, I had the first channels, but the Discord was pretty empty at that time. We didn't have events running, nothing was happening big time. And yeah, then at some point I also gave that away basically.
Yeah. Do you have a separate community manager in the organization as well?
Yeah, she's
Nice.
communications manager, but she's also mostly handling Discord, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You seem to have landed in the perfect role for you.
I am
Operations.
very happy with this role. The
Yeah.
EU community at some point made me a whip emoji. Because I was just whipping people around and making them do things and fix things and jump on teams and all of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's the right job for me.
Do you know Princess at VRML? Well, you must
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've worked with all of them.
You seem like similar personality to her.
Yeah, I found it kind of funny. Like we have two princesses in leagues working, right? Because Party League also has a princess. And I was just wondering why are they all called princesses? And then we have two leagues who have developers, both have fish in their name. So there seem to be interesting patterns in leagues and stuff.
Cool. So let's move on. So Vertex Stadium. So you joined, you got pulled on because you're good friends with VR Jersey. You're basically perfect for the role because of your experience in organization. How long have you been on the team? And like, was it just an easy yes when it was offered, the opportunity?
We had that funny situation where we were in Leicester on a LAN,
Okay.
and Jersey before told me, "Hey, I have this talk with someone who would be perfect to help me build this company," and that was all he mentioned, right? And I was sitting in, it was like a tribune basically, and some seating rows. And I was sitting next to someone and I heard like, oh, he's a German. So we started talking in German and he was like, yeah, I'm here to meet this guy who wants to show me some cool project technology. And I was like, oh, is that this person? And I was like, oh. So we started talking about it and it was really cool. So I could just tell him the vision for it and why I think it's an amazing idea, because the idea was basically we had sometimes watch parties in Discord, trying to watch matches, finals, or anything. But it was a very unsatisfying experience, of course, because the stream is always at different points for people. So some scream already, the next one don't know what's happening. People talk over each other. We tried some watch parties in big screen. It was always a mess. The
Yeah.
screen didn't work, the audio failed, whatever. It was like it was never good, and we just like we craved this alternative to like when we can't have a LAN event to just be like, okay, we need something where we can watch some these things together, where we can like have this social experience where we can cheer on our everything and just like have fun together. And yeah, I basically could just talk to that person and tell him like, this is why it would be amazing, and this is why we need it, and this is why it would be better, and this or that. And yeah, afterwards they had that talk. It was just really funny that by accident I met him, which is now my boss basically. So yeah, that was it was just really great. So I was involved from the beginning to just like I knew things and I was excited for it. So when Tim asked and be like, hey, would you do that for me? I was like, yeah, definitely. At that time, I didn't know that I would move to Finland and everything. So I still had my job. And I said, I would love to do it, but I can't commit to a full-time job until I see that this working, that it's succeeding, that there is a space for me. Because otherwise I would risk giving away my normal full-time job, right? So I said, like, in a small base, I can start working with you when you're ready. Well, and then I moved and I had all the time in the world. So it was perfect.
Nice. And so you're more, it seems like you're more interested in just building the business, being involved, making sure things are running, and like just trying to keep the chaos contained. That seems to be what you
I
are
just
good
like
at.
creating things, I guess. like building things up. I mean, that's why with the building up the EU community, building up the competitive scene, like I just like to create things pretty much, yeah. So
Nice.
having that and like a stadium in VR, that is something really cool for me. Just like the idea of having that experience that you can have in real life. You know, for example, if you watch a Counter-Strike competition in the Cologne arena, like in
Mm.
Cologne, it's like big stadium, thousands of people just being really excited.
Mm.
That is a really cool feeling. And I would just love to have an opportunity to experience that in VR because there's a lot of people who cannot afford to go to such occasions. Yeah, you just it costs a lot of money to travel there. You have the hotel nights and everything. Maybe you're too young to travel alone. Your parents don't allow it to you, and it's
Mm.
such an amazing experience. So even just partially getting that experience to more people, I think that's really cool.
When you describe it as a watch party, I hadn't framed it like that in my mind before. That makes a ton of sense. Watch
It's
party.
actually interesting when we started talking about the stadium. A lot of people got confused and were like, "What does it mean, the stadium?" Like
Mm.
they didn't understand at all that it's about the stadium experience, about coming together and experiencing something together.
Mm.
So people were like, "Oh, is it like big screen?" Like, well, no. Like, partially it is. It's a party. You watch something together, right? It's
Mm.
correct. Even in the Echo Stadium, you sit together and you watch it together. So it is sort of a watch party,
Mm.
but it's more than that. Like you can jump into the game, you can follow the players around, you can look what they do, you can just experience from their perspective. Why do they maybe play like that? Can get a completely different view onto the game. So even if I call it watch party sometimes, it's more than that. But
Mm.
that's still the original idea, right? To just come together and watch it.
Yeah, it just sounds completely like needed. It makes perfect sense when you call it a watch party. Yeah, of course. I want to go watch
Yeah.
the game. I
Yeah,
want to
it's really
watch it
funny.
with my
Like if you
friends.
talk about it, it's like you think, oh, a stadium experience. Like the term itself should make sense if
Yeah.
you think of a football stadium and going there.
Yeah.
But when we went to events or just talking to people, many didn't really get it. They were like, stadium, okay, but how does it look like? So you had to compare it to a football stadium. Like it's for me, it always sounded like stadium. I know immediately what it is, but for many people, it isn't. So
Do
yeah,
you know why I think that is? I think it's a cultural thing, as in internet culture. So internet people don't go to football stadiums. They go into,
that's actually
because
cultural.
they're
Yeah.
not thinking about it as a real place. They're thinking it as the internet. So for them, if you talk in internet terms, yeah, watch party, stream party,
Mm.
that makes way more sense to them, and then suddenly it's accessible. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
what we do
that
all the
that
time.
was at least what we were missing. Like we
Mm.
watched the competitions on Twitch, but we wanted to watch it. We wanted to experience it together.
Mm.
Because if you're at a LAN event and you sit there with others and they're cheering, they're excited, like that's a really great atmosphere, right? And to have
Yeah.
that's really cool. And yeah, you need a social environment where you can come together and experience the competition.
Yeah. I was gonna say something, but it's just like I'm not an expert. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I was about to say it with so much confidence, like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I didn't, like, you do this for a living and stuff. What I was gonna say, I'll say it anyway, is like, if the product is self-aware that it's so, uh, I'm gonna try my best and be relatable, but I might lose you here. But
Okay.
so I used to work for a startup called Fundamental VR, Fundamental Surgery, and what they offered was surgery training simulation.
Amazing.
So they you would rehearse. So the way that surgeons learn how to do surgery, what they would joke about is watch one, no, what was it? Watch one, practice, and then do one, something like that. It is basically like making a joke of how little training a doctor has before they
Mm.
actually cut someone's knee open. They read about it in books. They'll watch some videos on YouTube. They'll sit over the shoulder. They'll watch over the shoulder. That's why it's called theatre, surgery theatre, because the surgeon would work and then he'd have all the students watching. So you'd watch someone do it live and then you just do it yourself. And it's barbaric how, like, it's barbaric that that's what people
Yeah.
do in this century. That's how you learn how to cut someone's body
Yeah, it's
open.
terrifying, right? It's
It's
terrifying
absolutely
for the
terrifying.
surgeon that he goes basically to a real body, a real person, and he
Yeah.
has to do that without knowing what to expect sometimes. And it's also terrifying for the patient. So it's good that a lot of people don't even know how that works.
Yes.
Like especially like hip operations that are like basically a massacre in the operation room, right? Since I have that massage medical training and a lot
Yes.
of therapy knowledge and everything, I learned quite a lot of funny things, so I fully get it. So I think such an application is amazing because just having this opportunity to practice on something that doesn't necessarily die is very
Yeah,
comforting, I
but so
think.
it simulates that, but the point that I'm gonna bring it back to the thread where I was going with it is that in the marketing of the product, they were very self-aware that this isn't a replacement for YouTube videos, books, for watching someone do it in real life. They were saying, look, this is how you learn to do surgery. We are just filling a gap between YouTube videos and watching someone do it. So now you've got an addition to your repertoire of the same thing. And the connection I'm loosely trying to make here is that Vertex Stadium, I assume it already does, but it needs that self-awareness that it's not a replacement for watch parties like on Discord, and it's not a replacement for LAN events. It's something
Yeah,
in the middle. It's its own
exactly.
thing.
Yes.
And yeah, if that marketing is on point, then I think it's great. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
got a
I
thing.
think
It's
for
only when
me
it
mainly
tries
it's
to be
yeah,
something else.
it's that social. It fills a social experience gap because on when you watch Twitch, you're alone in front of a screen. It's lonely. Like yes,
Yeah.
even you have the chat, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much all you
Which
can
is,
have.
yeah. So having the chat is like, okay, step one. Step one, I
Yeah,
can talk to other people. Step two is I could speak on VC with other people. Step three, Vertex Stadium. Step four, LAN.
yeah. Even between
Right.
like you have Twitch as step one, you have a voice channel, then you have something what I would more call a watch party where you just sit together and you watch a stream.
Yeah.
Then you have Vertex Stadium because you have an additional layer of interactivity that you can be in the game, you can experience it from different angles, and yeah, it's really cool. You will see that later on when you are having a Counter-Strike map, for example. Some experience it during the Echo demos already, where you just be in the middle and you see the players fly past. Like here, you have the spectator mode where you get some of that idea, but not every game has that. So just being in the middle and seeing what's happening around you gives you a completely different experience, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. And then you have, of course, real life events where you actually can meet in person. And as much as I love them, and I think they're like the absolute non plus ultra of everything, it's just not always doable for everyone. So giving them something that gets them closer together, gets them more in this atmosphere of experiencing something special together, that is where Vertex Stadium has its place.
So how, purely from a business point of view, how was the shutdown? How was your reaction to the shutdown of Echo Arena, which is what Vertex Stadium as a first game has been built around?
Quick. Well, it was a bit like there's no logic behind it. I think that was my first reaction to just be like, why? You know, like especially also with what I said earlier that it has a very special position as a sports game that
Yeah.
has like there's not that many VR games that have
Let's no.
that many teams and
There isn't
everything.
any other. There's no other game
Yeah.
like Echo right now. There's
Yeah, I
no
mean,
like
some say like,
VR
oh, you have
sport.
Beat Saber, but I don't compare something like Beat Saber to like team games like this.
Yeah.
So there are VR
There is no
games.
market. There's just a monopoly. There is
Yeah,
Echo Arena, and that's it.
yeah. So just seeing that, like going into the VRML side and be like, holy shit, look at these amount of teams and compare that to all the other games. And then think around like, oh, Nipah, that's the only game they have. They actually have this approach of saying we focus on a sports game, because it makes it more interesting for a lot of sponsors that would not sponsor any of these other games. So
Yeah.
just having this massive game and this decision is like, I can't make that fit together in my head. So that was my first reaction. And of course, you start to think about, like, okay, if it doesn't make sense, they must have a reason for it. So you think about that. Maybe the code base is not manageable anymore because the personal changes and whatever. And then also thinking back about the things that many don't know about, that Echo was not supposed to be the main game for competitions, right? They focused on Echo Combat. So it's like, oh, okay, so maybe there was just the wrong expectations there. So yeah, you have these things that just don't fit together. So I don't know. It's just, yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me.
And so as someone employed by Vertex as well, like what did it mean for the company? Because I imagine this was a contingency all along. You were just ready for this, but it bumped it up the priority.
Yeah, like we definitely had plans, of course, for the next game already and for what is about to come. But we wanted, of course, to still have Echo as our first special project, because just also of the opportunities are like, hey, we have a VR game, and the Echo Stadium and in Vertex, it looks so amazing. It's just like made, this game is made for something like that, to just be in a stadium, sitting around and watching the game. It's really just absolutely perfect for it. So we definitely wanted to make that something special, and as a first showcase, I'm saying this is possible, this is what we can do, but also to bring our community together and give them that opportunity that they were missing before. So that was definitely something special that we wanted to use, and we had a lot of tests plans, and we wanted to work with all the leagues. So that breaking away definitely was like, oops, I think we have to speed up some other things, because yeah, there was definitely also this content gap, because we were still trying to work with some leagues, but yeah, some fell apart then, some didn't come up with new competitions anymore, so everything broke together very quickly.
And
And
that must have been
yeah.
fun for you. Organization,
Yeah.
sorry, operations manager.
Oh, it was definitely interesting when it's like um, suddenly organization people, leaders leaving their own Discord after some weird announcements, and suddenly no contact, no one answering anymore. So there were definitely some interesting experiences connected to that. But yeah, also a lot of good conversations just about how sad it is, and that we still wanted to support it in some way, and run some competitions as long as there's actual content. So yeah, it's just also really sad from that perspective, because it's an amazing game, and it's really looking cool. It's fun to watch it. So yeah, definitely a big loss, but was not necessarily a big issue, since we of course were preparing the next games already.
And is there any of that public knowledge yet? The upcoming titles,
Well,
games supported.
Counter Strike
Yeah,
is, because we
nice.
definitely wanted to have a pancake game in that sense, because it has just a bigger audience. As much as we love VR, you
Yeah.
cannot survive only on VR. So having both worlds and showing these capabilities definitely makes sense. So yeah, the Counter Strike trailer was a few weeks ago that it's coming, and yeah, I think that will also be really exciting. But it cannot replace Echo for me.
So how far off is that, the Counter Strike one? Is that still in, I imagine, beta versions?
Yeah, the stadium is still being in development. There will be early tests, but no specific date yet. But soon, as always, soon.
As always. Okay, cool. So, is there anything else you wanted to say from a personal point of view when it comes to the shutdown? I mean, you invested so much time. It was your escape back in 2018, 2019. I know life outside of VR has got way better now. So you're not as reliant on it. But, I mean,
Yeah, I
uh,
think what a lot of people underestimated, like especially also when you come from the perspective of a parent, maybe, You
Right.
just look at your kid playing it and you're like, oh yeah, he's gaming all day.
Yeah.
But the personal development that a lot of people go through while being in such a community
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah.
And also in VR, you suddenly have exposure to a lot of different countries, cultures, and people, and you have to speak English. Like my English, yeah, I mean, of course, I have a German accent and whatever, I sound funny, I know, but it still taught me so much. I remember the first days trying to speak English in this. I was muted for days, and at some point, I just started speaking English with people, and it was probably horrible. I do remember tutorial bot correcting me a ton of times and making fun about my German English things and whatever. But kids can actually learn a lot. Like they can learn English, they learn how to play in a team, how to interact with others, how to respect certain cultures, and that other people may do things differently. So there's so much positivity in this. Also from my perspective, with the pain, for example, like there's a lot of potential in VR to deal with people who have diseases, who have pain. We have a lot of people also in a wheelchair, for example. That's amazing. They can experience things that they cannot experience in their normal life. And that is something people should not underestimate. And Echo, especially for me, is like these things don't limit you there. You just fly around, you just do your thing. If your social anxiety or whatever kicks in and you have a problem, then you just do it like a certain player and you use a soundboard and communicate with quacking sounds. Also works. We learned to interpret that at some point and he started talking at some point, but we had all of these things, you know. And just looking at gaming, I think there's so much more to it. And Echo for me just opened this world, VR in general, and it's just really sad to see that go. It's not about playing a game. It's just about so many more experiences. And yeah, that is that's a big thing for me.
Do you play any other VR games? I imagine you don't have much time these days.
While I was still with ESL, I definitely played the other competitive games. Like I played some Onward, and I always tried to get in contact with the teams, and they showed me around and explained me things, which was always quite
Nice.
hilarious. So that I do play Contractors with Sendo sometimes. Walkabout mini golf is still a big thing, also for the Vertex teams who play regularly. It's a lot of fun. So I know there's a lot of good single player stuff also, but I always need games where I play with others. For me, it's just the social aspect, the group thing that I really enjoy. I try to test a lot of games that come out, the new stuff, to play them
Nice.
once, but I didn't get stuck at any game so far. It's nothing is like this.
When you say try new games, is this like, say, a friend has developed one and you're just testing it out, or is this just your curiosity,
Yeah,
like
I
going through the
definitely
library?
did also try like Slins and Gobshites and all of these games, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, also just like keeping an eye on new beta games coming out, like or yeah, I mean there were so many games now, like oh we're like Echo, right? Not happy about people comparing it to Echo, but of course I give all of these games a try, and well, I played them once, I played them twice. That's it so far. So
So there's nothing on your radar at the
no,
moment that you're
there's
like,
really nothing I'm like super keen about. For me, it's just like getting to walk about mini golf regularly, just because I think it's an absolutely stunning, amazing game. But it's like it's something where I go to relax, to hang out with
yes.
people, to chat. But I'm still missing something sportive, something that gets me active, but is in a group. So I haven't found anything really good there yet.
Cool. So, I mean, this is the part of the interview I'm asking about like future things, future plans. It sounds like it's in terms of like your career, it's very much Vertex. What's going on with that? Organizing the next phase as you branch out into different games, things like that. What else are you curious about? And it can be completely unrelated to VR. It can be anything. Like what else is on your mind as you're like, you know, cleaning the house or whatever?
Yeah,
Run your own
like
business.
Vertex is definitely a big part, and I hope it will succeed and will be a big part of my life for a long time because I just think it's a really really cool thing. And besides that, I feel just like catching up on my life a bit. Like I just want to have a lot of experience and have more fun because that is definitely something I was missing in my previous relationship a lot, to just go on vacation, to do fun sports, to just go out in nature and experience new things and have like little adventures. That is definitely a big part now.
Nice answer. Okay, last question. Are you ready? Have you seen? Oh, by the way,
Ooh.
have you seen any of the other Top of the Pop episodes?
I mean, I've
No.
watched Sendos, of course.
Oh, okay.
I skipped I jumped into a few here and there, but I didn't really watch any fully. No.
Okay. Chip or no chip? One day I'm going to say it, and then the guest is going to be like, "Oh yeah, I've got my answer ready." Chip or no chip?
You have to
Would
explain that
you
one to me.
would you put a chip in your brain that connects to the internet?
Yes.
Yes.
Fuck yes.
That's a fuck yes. That's the first.
I mean, I would probably let someone else test it first, but oh my god, yes. I'm so annoyed by how slow I am able to interact with things.
Right.
Typing a sentence is so boring. Like it's
Yeah.
little things like that. I just want to speed everything up. For me, the world is too slow.
Do you use voice, like voice commands?
Ah,
Any,
really?
like
I'm too lazy to talk, you
what's
know.
it? Speech to
I
text.
rather think. No, it's. I always hear others. I rather type than again. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
it's weird for me to speak to my phone.
Yeah. Fair play. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Nada. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed the history lesson part towards the beginning, and then hearing like the personal side, and then just yeah, that's epic. How you like how much you've done behind the scenes, and then you've just continued to do, and then people have recognized how good you are at building things and building communities and like making things run, controlling the chaos. It's a strong skill set to have.
And it was a long but long, stressful, and also amazingly funny and happy and satisfying journey to just go through all of that. And yeah, I mean, it's still amazing to be here. Let's enjoy it while it lasts.
100%. Awesome. Thank you, Nada.